There's a lot of friction in our lives that we tend to overlook, and once we solve them, it can free up a lot of what we carry on our shoulders.
Wow, I've never thought about minimalism that way at all.
No, I need to like see a picture of a postcard, and then I think I would like get the.
I saw something.
Ooh, wait,
I don't mean to...
Hello, welcome to Collage with Khushi. This is Hoony.
Hello, nice to meet you. Hello, my name is Hoony Chang. I am 22 years old, turning 23 in a few months. And I am currently a post-grad degenerate, kind of just floating on Earth as of right now. But aside from that, I have been a creative director for a little over a year now. Mostly independent, but a lot of it was tied to my experience leading a modeling club, and it's called Mode UW. I led numerous photo shoots and runway shows. That's kind of the current stage that I'm at in my life.
This is just like all my stuff, which we've been getting familiar with. There's like a lot of like, so these are like actual pictures, and then these are just like a bunch of scraps. They have like a bunch, but there's also like comic book strips. Like there's like, you just like, do you do a lot of collaging?
Actually, no. I think this is honestly my first time physically collaging
Really?
anything, so it's honestly super exciting for me.
You began your journey into this art realm as like a model. You started with modeling. So, and you founded Mode, which is the first modeling organization in the University of Washington. So, can you talk about your experience being one of the founders of Mode that led to developing that program? And then also, what was the push to kind of move into creative directing from modeling?
I had done a little bit of research on what kind of clubs are found at a university, but I was kind of looking at whether there were any universities in the country, let alone just anywhere in the world really, that had a modeling club. So I was hoping to sort of bring my personal perspective into a club where it can be more accessible and that kind of information can be wider spread. Along with that, I also wanted to sort of create a space for empowerment in a way where they know that they are really carrying themselves in a way that makes them feel good. That was a very rewarding and fulfilling part of starting Mode. And then from there, as I was kind of working on Mode and developing the special projects that I had going on, I actually wasn't familiar with the world of creative direction at first. I thought it was just like I just thought of it as a job title and nothing more. I never really understood or even learned about what it actually entails until I actually started as one. And so I think about a few months in, I realized, shit, I'm creative directing this shit. Like the whole time I was actually creative directing. And I was like, okay, this is very interesting, because at that time, I was basically in charge of all the visual narratives along with the processes behind putting those out in tangible forms. And I think it was one of the most rewarding parts of starting Mode. I think that was one of the very few moments in my life where I saw so much improvement in just a span of a year. And I think that's when I kind of knew that I love creative directing, and that is something that I definitely want to continue to do actively in my life.
Something in creative direction that surprises you?
I think for me, something that kind of took me by surprise is how specific one needs to be in order to be a really solid, well-rounded creative director. Because as a director, you're overseeing not only people, but you're also overseeing everything else. How things look and how things are done. And so that can kind of entail a lot of things, including but not limited to technology, project management, and sometimes even HR practices. I've kind of had moments like that throughout my experience. And so that kind of struck me by my surprise. There's a lot that you kind of have to think in grave detail about. And so the other thing that kind of took me a little bit by surprise is how specific that you have to be through your communication with the people that you work with. A lot of times you can't just assume that they know what you know and that they're on the same wavelength as you. And so let's say you kind of want a green gumball, you just want a green gumball. But as a creative, in a creative director perspective, you have to be like, okay, let's go to the mall. We're going to go to the east entrance where there's going to be a gumball machine. It's going to be the gumball machine on the bottom left of all the other machines, okay? You need at least 3 to 4 quarters, as many quarters as you can actually, just in case you can't get the green gumball. So you need the quarters, you need to put the quarters in and you get the green gumball, but it doesn't stop there. You need a Ziploc bag to put the green gumball in so that you don't drop it. That's kind of how much detail that I personally like to put in my creative direction projects. Yeah, and I think a lot of people tend to have opposing viewpoints. They think that that sort of process tends to overcomplicate things. But I think for me, it is essential to make sure that if there's a specific vision that you're going for, to not deviate from it as much as possible. I think some people, kind of circling back to the same scenario that I laid out, some people might be like, okay, if we get a yellow gumball, then I think it's okay. Or, oh, I think it's okay if we just bring 3 quarters instead of 6 or 7. And I think for me, that is something that I personally don't align fully with. But also, I think in a holistic sense, it was my first time working directly with creatives as a director myself. I had worked with them as a model before, but I think I sort of began to understood the general mind of a creative in the sense that they are so free-minded, and that is precisely why they're so good at what they do. But at the same time, they are kind of like sheep, and as the director, you're kind of like the shepherd. And so there's a specific direction or quota that you want to meet, but because the sheep kind of just go everywhere and anywhere, it is sort of up to you to lead them in the right direction.
You are a sign model with SMG. What is the brutally honest truth about the modeling industry in like the Pacific Northwest?
I think for me, the biggest misconception is that Seattle modeling or Seattle agencies operate similarly to other agencies such as LA, New York, Italy, Milan, etc. It is entirely different. I think the biggest misconception actually is the fact that people think that a lot of the high commercial shoots happen in Seattle. That is actually not true. It happens in Portland.
Oh, really? Portland?
Yeah, Portland is kind of the closest sort of modeling production area to Seattle, and that's where most Seattle signed models typically go when they are booked a job. They also have a misconception that because it is Seattle, it is going to be diverse in the representation of what kind of models get booked for jobs. And I know that these agencies are trying their best, but it's mainly the clients. They don't cast people like me, people who kind of have very sharp features. Instead, most of the jobs that are in Seattle, I think at this point you kind of already know, are very commercial and very athletic, outwear oriented. Basically, the typical PNW tech bro. And if that's something for you, then absolutely go for it, because they do actually pay very well. But I think for me, I definitely lean towards something high fashion, editorial, and so I will have to admit it was kind of a struggle for me. And it took a lot of time for me to process it too, because I thought it was kind of a me issue, but at the end of the day, it really is a location issue that I sort of faced.
Having a lack of East Asian representation in Seattle is not only like modeling but creative direction scene. Like what like impact have you seen that having?
I think first and foremost, one of the impacts that a lack of East Asian representation in those fields has is a reinforcement of stereotypes. So there are stereotypes that East Asian people are smart, they're academic, and they're very career focused, and they are sort of bound to that area of life, when in reality that is not true. And the other type of damage that the lack of this sort of representation has is reinforcing Eurocentric beauty standards. I think that was a huge one for me. And also just blatantly limiting the opportunities that East Asian creatives like myself have, and also East Asian models as well. So that was one huge qualm that I had with the modeling scene in Seattle. And going back to the Eurocentric beauty standard thing, I think the reason why I align a little more with other industries located within LA, New York, Asia, etc., is that they embrace very unconventional beauty standards. So monolids is kind of an example. I have monolids, but you never really see Asians here that are in projects that have monolids. So I'm kind of like an outlier in a way. I think in the case for me, it felt very isolating, but I kind of learned to make sure that I still have that self-love and self-embrace, but it definitely was isolating for me. I think also it kind of signals a lack of open-mindedness in those types of creative projects if you're going to cast the same types of people and represent the same types of people. I think it says a lot about their values, and that's sort of why I, as a creative director, have been making active steps to including as much East Asian representation as I can, and in a way where the output is accessible to everyone so that they can really appreciate the different backgrounds that sort of went into this. And also not just East Asian, Southeast Asian, and also South Asian too. Like we also need to.
We need a link. We need to like.
Yes.
Do you have any ideas on how to like incorporate East Asian, South Asian, Southeast Asian representation?
I think very simply just to cast more East Asian individuals, and also kind of thinking outside of the box for creative direction and being more authentic to East Asian backgrounds too.
So your aesthetic is very, very minimalist. So what are some of like your favorite artists that kind of inspire your minimalist aesthetic?
For me, I have 3 people who I kind of reference when I think a lot about my minimalist values. First one being Rick Owens. I watched the video where he was talking about his objects of affection. I think it was uploaded by Vogue. And I remember he opened his closet and it was just very few clothes, and I was honestly very surprised because of course he's a fashion designer, so I thought his closet would be a lot more full, but he chooses to commit to a specific outfit, I think every season, and I thought a lot about that afterwards, and that kind of inspired me. He self-describes himself as an eliminator, and I think that is one of the core components of minimalism. I think that doesn't tie just into physical minimalism, such as keeping things neat and tidy, and also just being very mindful with how much you consume on a daily basis, but also mentally too, and psychologically. I think for me, he sort of inspires me in the sense that I try to focus on very few things in my life, or be very specific about where I am placing a lot of my time and energy into. There's also Marie Kondo, and I've been reading Marie Kondo's book. I think it's called The Art of Tidying, or The Life-Changing Art of Tidying. And I think for me, she inspires me in the way that she places a lot of love and cherish into the objects that actually spark joy for her. I kind of learned that if you focus on a few selection of items that bring you joy and satisfaction instead of keeping a huge mass collection of miscellaneous items that you hope to one day put love and affection into. I think you're more likely to put in the right energy and the right effort into the things that you actually care about and the things that are actually worth putting time and energy into. And then the third figure for minimalism that I kind of look up to is Albert Einstein.
Wait, for real?
Yeah.
Albert Einstein.
Yeah, kind of similar to Rick Owens. He also wears one, or he wore one outfit, and that's kind of something that that's kind of a common theme that I'm trying to achieve. But his reasoning for that is his ability to think more clearly about important decisions in his day-to-day life. And so I think that also taught me that minimalism is also about reducing friction. There's a lot of friction in our lives that we tend to overlook, and once we solve them, it can free up a lot of what we carry on our shoulders.
Wow, I've never thought about minimalism that way at all. If you could change one structural aspect of the Pacific Northwest creative industry, what would it be?
The structure of representation overall. We already talked a lot about representation of diversity, but I think also representation of creatives in general. And I guess what that would look like, better advertising potential for brands and more career opportunities for creatives that aren't just tied to corporate clients.
I feel like you're the kind of person where it's like it feels okay to like sit in silence with. It's really nice.
Oh, thank you. I will say a lot of my interactions with my friends, sometimes we have moments of silence, especially after we go hiking. During the car rides, we are kind of just dead silent, but we have music playing in the background in the car. It's so funny because I'm the type of person who talks to myself. And sometimes I do it very, very loudly, but I do that to process my thoughts. And in those moments of silence, I'm also processing my thoughts as well. And I will say though that there are still moments that I have where I'm like, it's silent. I like, should I say something, or how should I make this not awkward? But I think those types of moments are inevitable, and I think over time I've kind of slowly became more acquainted with that.
This is so Studio Ghibli core. I'm just like walking through a garden, but the garden is my mind.
That should actually be a movie.
Yeah,
I would watch it.
Literally, like Studio Ghibli, hit me up. What's your favorite Studio Ghibli movie?
Howl's Moving Castle? I like that one. I think that's my favorite soundtrack out of all of them.
Yeah, mine's Ponyo.
I love Ponyo.
I'm like, not that I judge myself for it because I love Ponyo, but then I'm like, oh, this is like a children's movie. Not unpopular opinion, just the correct opinion. The best kind of movie, I believe, are not like big name directors like Christopher Nolan and all that. I think the best kind of movie is children's movies that also cater to adults. It's supposed to cater to children. It's supposed to be joyous, but the fact that as an adult you can watch this and still feel that joy, and like not in like a way where it's like, oh, like I'm enjoying this as a child, but like I'm genuinely enjoying this as an adult. Like that's the best kind of movie in my opinion.
When I think about those types of movies, I think of Up as one of them.
Yeah, literally. Like Up is so good. The Up House is like, do you know the Up House was actually in Seattle?
Yeah.
Did you see it?
Yeah. I was like, I drove by it on the way to the gym one day, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. They're talking about Ghibli, an AI Ghibli.
Oh, and
Wait.
it's Ponyo.
Should we talk about AI?
Should we talk about AI? Yeah, what are your thoughts on AI?
Fuck AI.
Fuck AI, for real.
Holy shit. I've been crashing out so hard because of AI and how people are just so overly reliant on it, especially in a creative sense. Oh, this is another issue that I have with Seattle based creatives is with the use of AI in the graphics. If you're watching this, you know who you are. You know who you are. It creates this issue and an epidemic where with the use of AI, you're not supporting other creatives and you're not supporting the process, and you're cutting corners at that point. And so I see these people as a type of people who are not creating art, they're just creating an event or a graphic for the sake of creating an event. Espa theme strip class.
What if Espa robbed people? Can you sleep on planes?
I wish I could.
Yeah, you're on.
I think so.
Okay. So this is mine. This is Hoony's. Hey. Snap, snap, snap.
I feel like it's so important for creatives like us to kind of just speak our mind about these types of things and just be very open about our values, especially if someone we could be working with in the future sees a video like this. Shameless self-promo. I'm currently working on a couple of projects. I'm kind of in the stage where I'm sort of an independent artist, and I'm kind of shelling out what I feel to be my last moments here in Seattle. And so I hope that, I don't know, actually no, I know it'll be rewarding and very fulfilling. And I think it's very exciting. I guess take this as a sign to just do shit that you love just for the sake of it, or don't think that it'll have a negative impact in any way.
That's true. Well, bye bye.
Bye bye.